Just two conscious guys talking, where conscious male leaders come together and have a discussion that is deep, that is nourishing, that allows us to see the illumination of consciousness that's unfolding progressively for men that are waking up in the world, and where you can get insights on your own awakening as a man, and also for amazing women that want to learn more about men's challenges and struggles that have created some of the dysfunction we've seen within men in its society, often called, quote unquote, the patriarchy and other terms. What created it? What is the genesis of it all? What can we do about it today to empower men to be all that they're meant to be and to support the awakening of consciousness for men and women and all? Hi, James. It's really nice to be with you out there in the jungle of Costa Rica and everything.
Yes, Daniel, mutually good to be with you too. And it's a beautiful day today, as it always is in Costa Rica, even if it's raining. But it's humid today, nice and sunny, humid.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful day in the jungle, right? A beautiful day in the jungle now. And whatever. It's kind of fun song about that. But
I'll
so
take
I
off
want
on
to be in a
this.
jungle just like you. All the friends you have out there, all your neighbors, it's perfect. Yeah, I think we should make a video of that right there. So
Yeah, a combination of Mr. Rogers and some other song. I'm not sure.
yeah, right. We'll find something fun to put together. So anyway, we're having a chat today. One of the things in this series I'm doing with men, just two guys conscious guys talking, is just really I was just thinking before the interview, I'm like, it's funny because you have been off the grid, so to speak. You've been traveling all over the place, all over the world, like for a very long time, and you've been gathering energies and working with energies, and you do all that kind of really fascinating stuff. And a lot of people I've been talking to are along along the lines of healers and coaches, but also other types of people as well. So but all very conscious and spiritual on that end of the spectrum. I think it's fascinating what you're up to, working with the earth and everything. And I'm kind of curious though, like my thought is, how did you get here? I'm just kind of curious about that, because I'm wondering if it has something to do with your like looking at it from the lens of being a man, like if in, again, Western civilization, a Western world, which has taken over a lot of the world, right? Even in the East, to some degree, started to take over everywhere a little bit. But it would be like the idea of doing what you're doing to some degree, it'd be like, what, you're like some vagabond or something? What's that all about? Like, from, if we're talking 20, 30 years ago, maybe get a little more like, I know you don't necessarily vibe with this, but digital nomads and all this stuff, but still it'd be like kind of a weird life. Like, what are you doing? What's that all about? But fascinating, but weird, and why don't you just get, they say, why don't you just get a real job? Why don't you do like settle down somewhere? What are you avoiding? I'd have all those, my mental mind would have all those questions for you. In my back of my mind, if it never even said that, I'd be like, well, why don't you settle down? What are you running from? Or what are you doing? And so, because I'm guessing, I'm feeling, and I'm guessing because of my intuition, I'm feeling, I don't know, maybe like there were pressures like that. You should be like this. Everything's like this. And growing up, and to me, you're like really being yourself. But it's almost like in the opposite direction of what you were told when you were younger, is my feeling. It really feels that way. So tell me your story, like how it was growing up with being a man in a more masculine sort of defined society and everything, and how you went from that to this, like, so spiritually connected, flowing, connected with the earth, working with the earth and the energies and everything kind of life.
Wow. That's a big question, but I like it.
Big, it's a big, big, big answer. I know, but we'll get started.
Start with that. It just, the first thing that comes to mind when you said, you're supposed to act this way and you're supposed to act that way is very early, very young, in the 1960s, um, about 5 years old, I guess. I was told, men don't cry, don't be a baby,
Yeah.
don't be a sissy, things like that. I was told, and it was it was a program because under 7, you're in basically hypnosis, and so you're receiving all these messages pretty deep in the subconscious, and you know, um, even to the point where I was, it was funny because I was hit to stop crying, shaken up a little bit, the shaken baby syndrome, because I was that sensitive. I was a very sensitive child, and I didn't know it, of course, then. That was in retrospect, but so I did early on shut down my emotional body. Emotions were limited in that sense. And so that playful, carefree kid felt like he was missing out on some level of being that free and carefree and emotionally. And so I grew up with that kind of a mindset, um, at least on the emotional level. But there was
Yeah.
many other things where, um, my father was also programmed heavily to stop singing because it was a sissy, only sissies sing. Things
Mhm.
like that are heavily rooted in the history. And so um, he was just doing the best he could with what he experienced. So, growing up, I'll just jump to in my 20s when I had my first job after college, my undergrad in business management. And I was in a corporate setting already with an insurance company, and they didn't like the fact that I wasn't married and have a house, um, because, that way I would have to pay my bills and have to depend on the job, and they could have me there. They wanted me to, they were, earmarking me for leadership and training me for CEO level that I found out afterwards. And in order to invest in me and feel safe in their investment in all the trainings, I needed to be more secure as opposed to single without a home, without a lot of bills. So I felt really odd. That felt odd even back then. That was pre-consciousness. I had my awakening at 33 years old. It was quite a crisis of awakening where literally my ego died in so many ways. Um, the basic things that sustain us or are foundations for us in life and in our society, the matrix, were like pulled out from under me, like the rug pulled out from under us and shaken. And I ended up having what they would term as a nervous breakdown. I later found out it was a spiritual awakening, and um, my mother had to actually take care of me for 3 months. I was non-functional, kind of like in an incubation state, at the best I could describe it. But I had someone die close to me. I lost a job. I lost a place to live. I lost a relationship. Both parents were diagnosed with cancer. I was in the hospital with them, helping. It was all at once, and it was just overwhelming. Plus, I was in a caregiving job. My graduate studies are in health promotion and wellness programs, and I had just gotten out of that degree in something like 1989, somewhere around there. And this happened in 1993. And so it was the launch of my business where I was consulting instead of working for someone else. I was working for a hospital at the time as the health promotion coordinator for 5,000 employees. And so that was in Connecticut. And, you know, that crisis was an awakening of proportion because I came out of it feeling this experience of things around me, people around me especially, couldn't do enough for me. And I wasn't asking for help or receiving, but it was like service to the nines. And people were shifting and changing what I could best see in front of me. And I don't know how to describe it other than, they would go from depressed or numb or like kind of in a trance state to very present and very awake, like a waiter waiting on the table that I was at. that was one experience I remember. Another one would be a door that was locked was within 12 hours of going to bed and waking up. The door was not only unlocked but open just slightly, um, and nothing was taken, nothing was gone, no one was there, but the door was open and no one else opened it or unlocked it. It was just, you could. And same with car alarms. A car alarm would go off without anybody touching the car. In fact, this one car had a trunk that would be an automatic slow lift open when you would put the key in, and the alarm would go off if you didn't put the key in, if you were even trying to get into the car. Well, it went up and opened by itself without a key, without an alarm going off. And this was a buddy of mine. And so he was just beside himself and looking at me like I was, what's going on? He said, I said, I really don't know what's going on. So there's these metaphysical, unexplainable, things, and, miracles, of course, with people that we're healing as well. Miracles are defined as, something that scientific method does not know how to make sense of, let's say, in the
Mhm.
physical realm. So these are the things that were happening. And then I was getting calls from other companies, HMOs, that were servicing the hospital, and I was doing behavior change programs, stress management programs, and you know, which was another evolution aspect, but I won't go into that at the moment. And the the shift of me not being any longer at that hospital, that was a one of the major hospitals in the state of Connecticut, where the people were calling me from these companies saying, "Where are you? We miss you, and we'd like you to continue doing programs for our clients and our members." And I just said, this is what happened, and so on. And they said, "Well, would you like to start doing it on your own? We'll contract with you." And this is how I ended up launching my consulting business, if you will. And that lasted about 10 to 15 years, where it was all word of mouth. I never really marketed, and I call it spirit marketing now. Um, so this was a process of my own evolution. In fact, at one point, I was mostly in the clinical setting, teaching meditation, for example. Again and again, people were coming out of it with these shifts of pain that was really deep in their body. They had pain meds and so on they no longer have to use. Same with migraines and so on. Oh, what else? There was one woman that just finally came out of it, and she said to me, she says, "You're hypnotizing us." I said, I really don't know anything about hypnosis. I don't know what you're talking about. And she goes, "I just quit smoking last week, and this is exactly the hypnosis, or the hypnotist did this." And I
Uh-huh.
said, "Well, it's in a hospital setting." I said, "I better get certified and trained, because they need certifications here." So that's how I fell into hypnosis. I fell into pretty much all the energy work trainings that I received after that, from Reiki to hands-on therapeutic touch, pranic healing. I mean, the list goes on. It was so many. DNA evolution. It was called, I can't even remember the name of that one, but basically evolving your DNA in
Mhm.
this lifetime, which was later proven and documented by Bruce Lipton. Um, but upgrading, let's say, frequency of your DNA. So I started applying these principles in the mainstream before year 2000. In hospitals, it was called energy medicine and self-empowered healing, or bridging science and spirituality. And so I had to have this documentation as well to prove it to the scientists and MDs, PhDs I was speaking with. So it just was a ball that I was keeping up with. It was rolling, and I didn't make any of that happen. So that kind of answers one of your questions, where how did you get involved in this? Um, it was very generic, very organic and natural. Um, and so, in 2002, I had in a meditation, a very loud message that I needed to sell my house in a very rich neighborhood. I was feeling really successful, because that's what the norm was, to,
Yeah,
achieve in the States, have a house and a
right.
beautiful yard. I had a white picket fence, everything. And so the I didn't want to go. I'm doing my soul work. Why would I want to leave all of this? I was pretty happy. And so my ego tried to sabotage selling the house. I put a sign out myself without a realtor. First day, the end of the day, 5 o'clock, I got a call. I even jacked the price up over 20, 15, $20,000 more than any other house sold, and not wanting to sell it. And he sold for that price. But there was two other people. The two other people in the next couple of days offered me 10 grand each more because they wanted the house. So I'm
Yeah.
going, wow, this is abundance. But I honored the first person, of course, respectfully and, integrally. So it was everything. I gave most of everything away and I went on the road. I was getting the message I needed to go on the road. And
Mhm.
so that's how I launched into, gosh, over 20 years of travel, 25 countries later. Um, Here I am in Costa Rica for almost 4 years,
Mhm.
but Hawaii was 8 years, and um, where was it? Mount Shasta, a couple of years, California, and a couple of years in Sedona, and various other places. But primarily, those are the main places where I stayed longer than just a visit, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was going to all these energy spots on the planet, these vortexes, if you want to call it that, ley lines that are
Mhm.
crossing, and where there was strong history, energetically speaking, in terms of change and human evolution, and so on, as guided. And I don't know, I kind of went off on probably some tangents there, but that's an overview.
Oh, no, I gave you a big, big question. So it's a big, big answer. So that makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
so what
so it
sounds
was
like what happened is you awoken and then you started following what you knew to be true for you. I mean, just to make it a really simple statement of how it really happened. It's like I'm kind of curious what awoken you though. Like, it was one of the spontaneous kind of awakenings, or was it gradual and then all of a sudden, boom, it was a kind of really a. Because I know it's not. We have like the dramatic awakening experience sometimes, and I understand there's all these different levels, layers, and everything. But how did you experience that initial like big sense of like ego dying kind of experience? How did that happen for you?
really a good question. I've looked at that, Daniel, and well, the ego, from my limited awareness, I'll just say, or from my experiential knowledge and working with clients and people, is basically the protector of the injured child.
Mm-hmm.
And and it's a conscious mind. It's very limited, 9% roughly of probably 5 to 7% if we're lucky of what we use of our brain, and 90% is unconscious and subconscious. So we're really not using a lot and knowing a lot. But the ego death was due to not being in control. And the ego wants to be in control to protect the injured child that's unhealed. And so everything that I had that I thought I was in control of was stripped away.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't by my doing. I didn't set myself up, although I believe on a soul contractual level, yes, and
Right.
timing, as well as frequency on the planet at the time, because the upgrades that we're experiencing, especially exponentially now,
Mhm.
with just astrological lineups and so on, we are being catapulted into an exponential time of the quickening, if you will, where time is irrelevant. Time is not even real, anyways, but it's not a function of time anymore or space. So backing up, I kind of digress, but so the ego died in the sense that it lost control. And the traditional Western medical model would diagnose that, and did diagnose that, as bipolar and manic depressive, and they wanted to give me lithium, and I said no. I was not to lithium. That was pretty much, you'd go into a really numb a state of detachment and dissociation or what have you. um, so I just went through it myself for 3 months of coming back on my feet. um, that's the best way. I do feel it was a combination of the loss of control, and it was written in the stars, if you will, in my own soul contract, pre-contract, before coming into this body.
Right. That makes sense because you said it was like a quote unquote nervous breakdown is really like what precipitated it. And Yeah, it's funny. Like when I was, I've told this story many times, but when I had anxiety and depression when I was in high school is when it first really started happening. Probably that's pretty common for a lot of people. But I went to see a psychiatrist for the first time, and I was just honest at first. I'm like, you know, I basically I was on to the Matrix back then, right? But I didn't know what I was talking about. But like I was connected, you know, from really from like kind of the beginning. Like I'm like it's all love and why everybody's just hysterical. My mind wasn't saying that, but my awareness was aware of that, and I was connected to that awareness. But my mind wasn't necessarily thinking that all the time, but it was this awareness I had, and as I saw like how crazy life was and how people are being programmed, everything as we go into, you know, into teenage land and, you know, all the ideas of, yeah, I gotta be like this or like that or whatever. And all, I was just like, so I kind of, like the idea everybody like maybe kind of maybe what I was thinking is like everybody's stupid. This is all stupid, things like that. And I was just like, I just want to grow up. I just want to be past all this stuff. And I had some inklings of being a spiritual teacher or something like that. But again, consciously, I might not have been able to articulate that, but it was there. I could feel it, you know. And then, but I remember when I getting back to the whole nervous breakdown sort of idea and stuff is like I was having all this anxiety, depression because of all this. And then I went to see a psychiatrist and I said, you know, I don't know, I've got this power. I would tell my friends this too, and they would laugh, but and I got this power and I could swear I could move things, I could blow things up, I can do all this stuff. And like, oh, this is all very interesting. Tell me more, right? And they're writing and writing. By the time I'm done, yeah, same diagnosis basically, something like bipolar with, you know, characteristics of, you know, delusions of grandeur and all this stuff, and then and I don't know if they prescribed lithium or what it was, but it was something along those lines. That's all I kind of remember. And then I was like, so what do you think? I thought after that, I'm like, well, first of all, yeah, we're not doing that. And I also was like, okay, I'll never tell anybody that again, you know, when I go to these sessions. Okay. Cause I knew like it was too much. They're like, you're just, oh, okay, you're just, that's a disorder. That's a problem, actually, you know, it's like, oh my God. So yeah, I relate to that. Like the awakened ones that, you know, you're connected to this sense of consciousness that's telling you like, you're crazy, you know, and that's
Yeah,
why I went on to work with like people that are like chronically mentally ill. But you know, yeah, they had issues, but a lot of times they're just perceiving things that other people aren't just tuned into, and they just can't learn how to harness it yet. Now back then I didn't know how to help them in that way. I just gave them like foundational spiritual teaching, and that was helpful. But I didn't know how to help them harness their gifts at that time or whatnot. But yeah, it's just like, yeah, oh, you're having a breakdown and you know, you're crazy or something. It is kind of funny to me. It's like, yeah, like they say, what do they say? Like the crazy ones or the enlightened ones or something, or I don't know. But yeah, it's just pretty interesting this idea that the one that seems to be it's almost like they're a reflection of the dysfunction, right? Like it's all one. It's like they're a reflection of dysfunction going on all around them. Now I
mm,
look at someone like I know he says some nasty stuff, but like Kanye, you know, West, it's like he says crazy things, but he's also got a lot of good points. And again, everyone's just a reflection of what's going on collectively, right? Like at some level, they're the ones showing up in that way, so we can all pay attention. Oh, wow, there's some crazy stuff going on here. What's that all about, right? So I think it's just fascinating to you know, this whole idea of a nervous breakdown and everything, right? That we've been given, right?
well, you're absolutely spot on, and that's really a definition of a stereotype based on not fitting into the norm, whatever the norm is.
Yeah.
And any society, any time period has different norms, and they change, and they can change.
Mhm.
So, as let's call us icebreakers, who are here to do that shift or that change, have to be pretty strong, pretty bold, and pretty set, confident, let's say, in our what we're actually feeling. Like you said you came in pretty much aware. I did not. I had to live 33 years of programmed unconsciousness, if you will. And that's the program. The running program is to keep people unconscious. And, whether you're a male or a female,
Yeah.
whether you're stereotyped this way or that way, like you're a lunatic because you don't fit into what is provable in with the five senses and science and so on, you're
Mhm.
pretty much out there, on your own, pretty much. And
Mhm.
you've got to be pretty strong because it's like I liken it to the metaphor of a tugboat. Tugboats are small and powerful. They break the ice for the freighter of humanity, in this case, to follow in its wake.
Mhm.
Much easier than than you know um, than if they did it on its own. So I feel that the freighter of humanity is now, because of the preparation that people like yourself, myself, and especially for males, being in touch. You have to be in touch with your female side or your heart or your emotional body in order to really tap into the clarity levels and the sensitivity levels that you have, I have, and others like us do. So we're
Mhm.
not only just breaking the ice, let's say, for spiritual evolution and the leap that we're experiencing now on the planet, for masses that are all waking up at the same time because of crisis. And
Right.
crisis does, my 30 years of working with behavior change and evolution, it's most often, probably 90 to 95% of the time, we have to hit a wall, a crisis point,
Mhm.
humanity, in order to have that wake up call, in order to make that change. So right now we're experiencing, as you know, a collective wake up call
Mhm.
from collective crisis.
Yeah.
And it's normal. It's entropy, and I call it K order instead of chaos. Hopefully, that's my prayer. K order is bringing in the
Mhm.
new paradigm,
Yeah.
the heaven on Mother Earth paradigm.
Yeah. That's
And
great. Yeah.
yeah, it,
That's a great
it's
way to put
so
it.
there's yeah, well, stereotypes are an umbrella term for
Mhm.
the umbrella norm. And what is a norm? Statistically speaking, the bell curve,
Mhm.
there's fringes on the outside of the bell curve of a small percentage of beings. The bell curve is just across the board of humanity or a given population. This happens to be the answers. No, the what about all this 1%, 0.01% on the outside
Right.
of that bell curve? That
Mhm.
would be you and I, people
Right.
like us.
Right.
And so we don't want to be lumped. We don't want to lump anybody into that stereotypical assessment. Science is a little slow.
Mhm.
It's a little behind.
Mhm.
Things are moving a lot faster.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. It's always behind. Really, science is always behind in a way. In a way, like it's kind of funny
yeah,
to say, but you know what I mean. It's kind of behind. They always say like the mystical wisdom, or is figure this stuff out way, way back when, but now the science starts saying, wait, well, maybe there is something to that, like whatever the thing is. Oh, now we have scientific ideas that actually line up with it, and yeah, it's what keeps coming to me with you is in this conversation with you is the whole construct of our mind. It's like, okay, all right, so what program are we in? What are we doing? Okay. Um, right? Because the model we're still being given is still stronger than the spiritualized kind of idea of which could be a whole other fake model too, but like this whole like you said, well, I got the house, and yeah, but why don't you have five more properties? Why are you flipping houses? And why aren't you having more cars? And why don't you have more this, more that? And why don't you work more hours? And why don't you, you're not tough enough? Like I heard that, like I hear it from different people that are being influenced by other people. Like because I listen to a lot of different people because I want to hear what's going on in the consciousness. Like, what are people saying? I'm curious. So, like, I listened to a Joe Rogan. I just heard him today say, "Weak men. That's what we got now. We got weak men, and it's leading to bad times. And that's what we got right now. It's weak men, weak men." And he got that from. He even said, really, he got it from Jordan Peterson, who is
mm,
this psychologist background, you know him, but with all this
Yeah.
idea. And but Jordan Peterson, but then I break it down, I'm like, okay, they're unconscious, both of them. Like Jordan Peterson went through a whole breakdown of his body and mentally and emotionally, because he was being the way he was. Oh, I'm so strong. And I'm not making it wrong. I'm just saying, but he broke down because of it. I look at Joe
Yeah.
Rogan, and not too long ago, he said, really, it's when I've done, like, I forget what he said. I think it was LSD. It's like, when I did LSD, that's when you get clear. That's when, you get out of your way finally. I'm thinking, like, if I'm interviewing him about what he just said about weak man, I'd be like, that's a nice concept. So when you were on LSD, were you being a weak man or a strong man? And see what he's got to
Hmm.
say. Like, because now what's his mind going to say? What's his mind going to say now? Well, I don't know. I don't know. It's what he's going to have to say if he's honest. That he doesn't know. He doesn't know. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, are you strong now? Are you weak? Like, because
Yeah.
he's in such a connected state there where there's none of that going on. This idea of strong or weak, right? There is none of that going on. So I think it's fascinating. A mind. So I'd say this too. So some of my clients are really spiritually advanced on the bell curve, right? And even
Yeah.
the best of us aren't buying so much stuff, like we're still like neophytes still. It's like, okay, wait a minute, what's this false idea you're carrying, as a man, or based on your background or whatever, right? It's like there's so much, right? In a way, it's exciting when you look at it. You're like, man, there's so much more to explore. There's so much more expansion that's possible in consciousness. It's not about getting stuff, but opening to more of who we are, right? It's an exciting time, really.
It really is. Well, you bring up quite a few really good points. I don't know where to start,
I
but
was just
I'm,
talking, I said
I'll,
just two guys talking.
yeah, right. Just catalyzing each other. Um, well, I'll just start with the weak piece because I just looked up something earlier um, about, men crying is considered weak.
Yeah.
Um, and, you know, there's some 10 major stereotypes of males as being risk takers or
Hmm.
the disdain for homosexuality or
Hmm.
violence, winning, being on top of your game, emotional control, power over, dominance, power over women, playboy, self-reliance, primary of work, pursuit of status. These are major stereotypes to the male. And when you're saying about programs, there's a limiting belief. They're all limiting beliefs by definition. Even science, of course, science. Let's
Yeah.
look at the Western medical model. Everything that was done in the journals for research. I mean, I read somewhere in the research, and I think it was the Journal of American Medical Association, one of the bigger ones, in the 90s, 85% of what was researched as documentable, researched and put into journals, 85% of what was done in hospitals was a crapshoot. It wasn't documentable. So 15, in other words, you go into a hospital, 15% is the likelihood that whatever modality or choice things you're going to be experiencing is going to be successful 15% of the time.
Yeah.
So it is practicing medicine. I mean, and I'm not ditching anything.
Yeah.
I do feel there's a place for everything and
Right.
science as well. And so hospitals too. But when you define something, you're limiting it by definition. Like
Hmm.
you said, science and spirituality. Spirituality is so expansive. And
Hmm.
yet, when we want to have control or security, we
Hmm.
want to have all these things, a house. We want to have enough money so that we're secure. We want to plan for retirement, whatever that is.
Hmm.
We're programmed with these limiting beliefs to be in a box, a
Yeah.
very limiting box. And if you go outside of that box, there's a lot of fear that comes up,
Hmm.
fear of the unknown. I've just unraveled everything that I've owned over it took me 20 years to be a minimalist and with trust, of course, and faith that I will always be taken care of if I'm in integrity with me, my soul, my heart, and
Right.
therefore first me, then others.
Yeah.
So, in order to honor and respect, even if it's right or wrong, good or bad, because there is no such thing, but to
Yeah.
honor and respect that process of learning and growth and expansion, no
Mhm.
matter what it looks like or feels like, and then
Mhm.
trust it and keep moving forward unknowingly where that path is going to take me. I don't know how I'm going to receive this resource to do what I'm feeling in my heart to do over here, but I know and I trust that person, the right person, or that money, that amount of money, those things will show up just when I need them. And I've seen it time and again, Daniel, prove itself. Efficacious. It's provable through repetition.
Right.
So,
Right. Keep, it's
uh,
just keep coming. It's just, yeah, in a good way. So yeah, I mean, it
it
just
does.
keeps happening because you're in the connection, you're in the flow, so to speak, or whatever you want to call it. But you're in that, and so that's the experience you have. If you're like, yeah, I'm constantly trying to figure it out. Eventually, I do. Everything still be working out, but you would have, yeah, it's hard. This is a hard life, man. I got to constantly figure it out. And not to say that you don't have challenges. Everybody runs into those, but
For
my
sure.
point is, right? My point is, because sometimes I think that ends up being like this idea that people have, that I think it's because people think like that's what should, like, the ego again, like, oh, it should be like everything becomes totally effortless, you're never challenged, you're totally woke up from the illusion, and everything flows and everything's magical, and there's never a challenge. And I think like people think like there's a world that exists for us individually, collectively, like that, and it doesn't exist on this plane anyway.
It's so true.
Yeah, yeah. It's not,
Well,
it's, yeah, yeah, go ahead.
um, the challenges continue, and
Yeah,
I'd like to think we're also trained and programmed to think that we're going to get somewhere, goal oriented.
yeah,
I'm not saying it's not good to have goals. Yeah, have goals, but I call it a loose plan and a loose grip at
yeah,
this point.
yeah.
Because if you think that once you get to that end point, that goal, that you're going to be on easy street, that's not necessarily the case more
Right,
often than
right,
not.
right, right.
And but the training process, enjoying the journey in this case, um, if you look at everything as an opportunity to practice mastery, and let's put it out there, let the Christed being would be mastery,
Mhm.
as Christ has left a template, if you will, on this planet, energetically speaking, for us to step into as human beings having a spiritual experience, to be doing what he did and more, or she and more. And so to get to that process, there's a lot of sacrifices. There's a lot of letting go.
Mhm.
And you've got to let go of that control or thinking that this is my security and this is my sustainability. And I'm not recommending everybody to just, give up everything and just go
I
out there.
just do what James did. Sounds great. Right.
you know, you got to follow your path, your heart.
Right,
That's for
right,
sure. But
right.
it's one step at a time.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
each time you're gathering momentum, I look back, everything I've learned, most of the valuable things I've learned were experiential wisdom, or it's now experiential wisdom, was experienced as and became knowledge and wisdom from that experience. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't necessarily in the plan
Right.
of what I thought was the plan.
Mhm.
You plan and God laughs, or the universe laughs. So you make a plan. It's just like,
Yeah, I
uh,
remember.
I love.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I was just recalling like the plan thing. I remember when I was first getting into metaphysics and everything, and for a number of years after that too. But I was more like, I'll manifest whatever I want. Bang! I focus on that. That happened. I'm gonna make it happen. I'll make it happen. Whatever it is, and sometimes it worked out, sometimes it didn't. But yeah, sometimes I would see results that were kind of profound to my mind to some degree, but it just keep boosting my ego, right? So it's like a first step for some of us. Oh, I learned how to manifest. I don't manifest anything. I manifest on command, and all that stuff. And then once you start realizing that's not quite what it is, or quite where it's at either. You know what I mean? Like it's not quite what your mind thought it is. Then it's like, oh, then what do I do then? what do I do? You know, like it's really weird. And I remember one time what I was trying to get to with the planning is I remember talking to one of my spiritual friends about, well, I got plans. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. You know, as that metaphysical, I'm going to make it happen mode. He said, well, while you're making plans, life's happening. And I was like, well, that's a bunch of crap. I want to feel like I'm making it happen, you know. But I found quickly after that time, after he said that thing, I was like, yeah, there's some truth to that. Sometimes you get the course corrections and everything, and because I think sometimes this idea you're creating a reality, people get so entrenched in that idea, like especially, you know, quote unquote high achiever type of people, right? Like no matter what, you can't stop me. I'm making this happen no matter what. And I don't care what's going on. I'll dissolve that too with my metaphysical principles and you know, no problem. And those are really strong with this, right? Like I was. And it's like, but then eventually you start realizing you're creating like you're not in your heart, you're not in your deeper presence, you're just trying to control everything. And you can do it to a point until you break down. You know, eventually most people break down, like, because life's like, come on, enough of this nonsense. And then something happens, right? Whether it's your health or something else happens and it breaks you down. For me, I think it was more a wearing down process. Like I just started waking up more and more to, okay, wait a minute, this isn't really where it's at, you know, like as I started going to silent meditation retreats, I think was a big part of it for me. I was like,
Mm.
there's no controlling anything here. I was already meditating all the time, but like when I went deeper, it's like, wow, this is really amazing being just connected and just letting things unfold, you know, like, wow, this is much easier, you know, much more delightful.
Yeah, that would be, I term that grace and ease, please. And
Yeah.
when you're so right on many points you just shared. You're spot on with being in your heart versus your head. But typically the male is considered left brain or
Mhm. Mhm.
analytical,
Right.
critical thinking, the
Mhm.
doer, the provider,
Right.
the get it done kind of guy. And if
Yeah.
you're focusing spiritual energy, let's say you're learning all about these spiritual principles and you're studying, guess where that energy is going or coming in? It's inputting through the mind. So you inflate the mind. And if
Mhm.
there's an injured ego, which who doesn't have that, or an injured child, or an ego because of an injured child, you're inflating that ego or that injured child. And it's not good or bad, right or wrong. It just, with spiritual information, it becomes spiritually inflated ego.
Yeah.
And it's more damaging. You addressed, you know, um, how that can be a challenge, because we can create from any place, our mind or our hearts.
Yeah.
And there's a good book that I read parts of by Trungpa Rinpoche, I believe in the 1970s. He wrote this book called Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism.
Mhm.
And it was just profound, meaning, spiritual inflated ego without coming from a healed place is more damaging than regular ego
Mhm.
in terms of power over and manipulation and so on.
Yeah, yeah, that's
And
true. Yeah.
yeah, and so I see a lot of that because I just see it. If somebody hasn't had a serious enough crisis to heal that inner child or the karma that they came in to work on, let's say, as a soul, then that happens very often. Unless they're automatically in their hearts, pretty much like yourself, you were pretty much born, myself too, as a sensitive child. And then that heart was shut down layer
Right.
by layer,
Right.
depending upon
Yep.
what happened. Yeah, in a society that is the norms are this way, not
Right.
that way.
Right.
So that's quite a process of it can make you insane.
Yeah, because I just remember being a kid, just feeling like everything people were making important. Often, I just felt like it wasn't real. Again, my mind might not have articulated it that way at the time, but I know that's what was going on for me. I'm like, why are grades so important? Why, like underneath, I know that's what was going on for me. Like, this is insanity. Like, all the gossip people have, opinions they have, judgments. I'm like, what's that all about? Why? I didn't know. I was young, too young to understand, maybe for me anyway. Some people maybe are wiser, very evolved, young children, but I just had no clue. Why is it the way it is? It just seems so insane to me. But then it's like, well, but look at my grades, I don't measure up, and maybe I'm not that great, and not buying it at the same time. But then, yeah, as I remember when I got into grad school, for example, I was like, all right, time to finally get serious at grad school now, right? Like I did a little bit of it earlier than that, but like once I got to grad school, it was like for clinical psychology, I was like, that's it. Okay, I've been lazy too much my whole life. Now I'm gonna be the hardest working person in this entire program. And I'd fall asleep with I would not let myself even fall asleep. I'd be with the book. I'd be with the book. I'd be like, all right. And then I would fall asleep with a book in my hand every night. Like, no one's working harder than me. That's all I know. That's how I succeed. That's what we've been told. If you're the hardest working person, you're probably going to have more success. Fine. I work harder than everybody. Well, within a few months, I ended up on medication because I could
Wow.
get so tired, and I couldn't, even when I tried to relax, and I couldn't sleep at night. So, for me, it's like I tried not being my truest self. I gave it a crack because I didn't know. I'm trying to figure this thing out, right? Trying to figure life out, so to speak. And I learned, like, okay, this isn't working either, though. This doesn't work either. So it puts us in a real quandary, I think, in the mental level, because you just like, well, what is it? Some people say you gotta work hard. Some people say take it easy, go with the flow in your intuition. Some people say integrate. Some people say this. Some people say that. It seems like when we reference what the mind has to say, even when we're talking here, it gets really crazy. But when you come back and you go into this, for me, when you come back into the stillness, into the deeper connection, into even just stillness, not maybe even your heart, even like just the stillness, like just the deeper stillness, it's like, okay, I'm free. I'm totally free in this space. And everything kind of matters and doesn't matter. It's like, so then you're more at choice. It's more like, oh, I don't know I don't even know how to, that'd be a whole nother big discussion. But it's like, but you start to
Yeah.
realize, like, oh, I can come from this space, but the mind is so good at coming back again and again. I'm back, baby. I'm better than ever. But my journey has
Yeah.
been like it's collapsed enough to where those cycles don't have as much, don't have legs as much. Like, it's like, all right, I'm ready for another sprint. Let's do this thing. And then I'm like, oh yeah, this isn't for me, like more
Yeah.
quickly over the years, right? So that's kind of been my experience with this idea of like feminine and masculine, which I don't even know if that's true either. But like the idea of structure, order, make it happen, masculine, and feminine, like, oh, let's just be here now and be in the heart and be receptive and be loving and kind and just let things unfold, and that whole thing.
Create,
And yeah,
yeah, creativity.
yeah,
Um, you know,
creativity, yeah.
yeah. And
Intuition, so many things, right?
there are. And I, to blend it all is I feel the goal, the balance between the two.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to keep it really simple, giving and receiving. Giving would be
Mm-hmm.
more typically the male, receiving would be the female.
Mm-hmm.
So to have a balance between receiving and giving.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you can only give to the degree that you've given to yourself first.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's selfish, but a nice ratio I've read somewhere, and it was a channeled piece. I believe it was the Book of Ra, a seventh dimensional soul group of channeling back in 1982. Anyways, it's very accurate. And 51% of the time should be spent, it was stated, on service to others.
Mm-hmm.
49%, the other 49% should be service to self. So
Mm-hmm.
you can balance that giving and receiving, that receiving and giving of the feminine and the masculine within, to
Mm-hmm.
honor both
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and incorporate all of it. And you're so spot on again, the still point. the 0 point, is
Mhm.
really where it's this place of unmanifest, the place, as you probably heard, I guess, of Eckhart Tolle or someone would say that,
Sure.
the place where everything happens, everything's potential possible,
Mhm.
and that's where grace and ease comes from.
Yeah. Mm.
Instead of struggle, make it happen.
Right. Mhm.
And so I spent the last 20 years unraveling my brain and everything I thought I knew. um, I had so many books, the library, and reading and studying. I was spiritually inflated ego. It was huge. Um, Even though I had that wake up call, I was still, I had to have that data to show humanity I wasn't a snake oil salesman. Especially the audience I was speaking to was, scientists, doctors, nurses. They needed that. It was a bridge.
Yeah.
So one of my mantras that I use in order to get rid of the books and the dependency on science and research and study and reading, because there was so much energy put up into my head instead of my heart and my body
Mhm.
and feeling my body. I've left my body behind. It was dragging around, kicking and screaming with the mind taking charge. My mantra is, I'll know what I need to know when I need to know it. I'll know what I need to know when I need to know it. And lo and behold, as a leap of faith and trust, everything that I needed to know in any given moment would just show up and come
Right.
to that awareness.
Mhm.
And that helped me balance the feminine and the masculine within this body, within this being.
Mhm.
Hmm,
That's
what a
great. I
journey.
love that one. I love that one. Everything I need to know, I'll know it when I need to know it, kind of thing. Yeah, that's so perfect. I mean, and then it's once we set it's like, once we set that as our way of being, then that's what we get to experience. That is the metaphysical. It's like, okay, and it's more aligned with the way it works anyway. So it's like, then it's a lot easier. It's like, oh, okay, here it is. Yeah, because a lot of times that's what we're struggling with, right? We don't know something. That's what we're afraid of. I don't know this and I don't know that and I don't know. That's like a huge
Exactly.
part of our suffering. It's just this idea that we don't know. I've got a pain in my foot. I don't know what's causing it. It's not the pain in the
Yeah.
foot that's really the issue, as much as you don't know what's going on and you're scared of it, right? Well, I don't know what's going on, and it hurts. But it's more that they don't know what's going on, I think, is way more the suffering. And again, I have experienced some really excruciating pain physically in my life, and over a period of time. And I know there's always higher levels. So God, trust me, I get it. I've experienced nothing compared to what's possible, please. But but I'm just saying, I've
Yeah.
experienced a lot, and it's like, honestly, like when you're connected and you're just entrusted in faith, it doesn't really bother you nearly as much. It's just kind of like, yeah, it's just kind of there, it's just this thing that's kind of there. You take all the drama off of it, and all of a sudden, like, you take all the unnecessary suffering away from it. Yeah, maybe it's uncomfortable still, but you can actually have a sensation of pain and not suffer. It's really interesting. It's a really interesting thing.
Yeah, it is very much so. And, you know, pain is an indicator that in some respects, some people would say, as an indicator that you're not on the right path, or you must be doing something wrong in order to, experience this much difficulty. Not necessarily true.
Mhm.
Who knows what your soul's contract is for learning and growth, and having to go through these, let's say, painful experiences
Yeah.
in order for that growth to occur.
Mhm.
And, I do follow this other statement from the Bible. I believe you're never given more than you can handle.
Mhm.
And I truly believe that, even though it's not easy to live when you're, pretty much at death's door, which I have been 3 times at least. And that was just from outside, let's say, forces. But from an inside perspective, at least twice I wanted to commit suicide in this journey.
Mhm.
And I thought about it very long and hard, and
Mhm.
it was painful. It was that painful. I wanted out.
Mhm.
And so I can really resonate with you saying you've had a lot of pain in your life. And I guess it's, who knows what it's like to come out of a cocoon. I know the caterpillar melts down and liquidates inside out, and it
Mhm.
has to stay there for a long time before it becomes this magnificent interdimensional being, if you will, of a light butterfly. It's
Yeah.
amazing, from kind of a slug experience. So
Mhm.
we're coming from our slug experience, out of the trenches and the heaviness of being in physical form into this butterfly state.
Mhm.
And who knows? I don't know where there's a manual for that. I would love to have it if you know of a manual of how to do that. But I think we're we're bumping around, and I'm going to say literally and figuratively, we're bumping around through the dark to get there.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, there are guides out there, right? There's all kind of books and things to help us, but each path is unique and that only goes so far, like it's your own unique path and there are tools, there are things to help, but you've got to just be present with your own process and as it unfolds and nobody nobody can nobody would want to a spiritual teacher wouldn't want to a deeper spiritual teacher wouldn't want to try to just take all your pain away instantly. Okay, that's another thing I used to be in. Oh, let's heal everybody. Let's boom, let's clear everything out. And I don't know. Like I started realizing, okay, what's that all about though? Like why aren't we paying more attention to the pain? Why aren't we seeing what's really going on? Maybe something greater is wanting to happen with it rather than just getting rid of it, which we can. We could, boom, you're cleared. Okay, you're done. We can create that magic sometimes, but it is it really what that person's needing right now? These are all the things we want to consider when we're looking at the bigger picture, a soul path, right? Rather than, oh, it must be better for them just to be well and just get on with it right now. And because that's how I experienced my back pain. Is my back, and not really my back, that ultimately one of the times was down my leg, and that was even worse. Like people are like, oh yeah, sciatic pain, that's bad. This was something else. Like this is like a really like very crazy level of pain. And I always tell people I cleared out things before physically fast, but I just knew like I wasn't supposed to with this whole thing I had for years. For many years, I was having these issues. And I'm like, no, I need to keep being with it. You know, I'm not trying to just clear it on the spot. I'm trying to see what it's trying to tell me. So if that can help even one person out there, hang in there too. The whole suicide is such a common thing for people and men, and the suicide rates to the roof. And hang in there. I've had those thoughts gazillions of times in my life, and um, I've never made an attempt or anything, but I've had the thoughts many times, and you just remember, like, if you stay with it, like things will always get better. Because when you're in the hole, you think it'll never get better, but when you stay with it, my experience anyway is, and you keep focusing on things just getting a little bit better, they will. They will. As long as you just keep a focus for it. Don't try to get a lot better when you're so depressed, but just a little better. And eventually it'll happen. So try to cover a lot of things because I'm gonna need to wrap up soon on our convo today. But yeah, just throwing a bunch of stuff out there.
well, it's very good stuff. I have to say, Daniel, you've done a lot of work, and your inner work and outer work is showing uh, as a result of what you're sharing here today for your listeners. And I know it's very beneficial, what you're sharing, experiential wisdom. And I, there's a couple of things I can say to what you just finished saying. And one, I think that I had to learn through the school of hard knocks. Well, first of all, no one ever said that an evolutionary leap that we're experiencing on this planet for humans would be easy.
Right.
We are experiencing that. However, when you're in that hole, as you describe it, that deep, dark place, um, everything does look a lot different. And it is easy for someone outside of that hole to say, well, this will get better. It's okay. You just hang in there. When you're in it, you can't even see that.
Right.
Um, and so what I've learned, and it's maybe even hard to embrace this or even apply this, is to like, embrace the pain, embrace the suffering,
Yes.
embrace the place you're in.
Mhm.
Because what you resist does persist. And so if you're resisting this pain or saying this is, going into victimhood, I'm a victim, I'm suffering, and it's not my fault, or it's not this or that, will keep you there. It's a resistance. So to accept it as this is part of my journey, how can I embrace this and learn from it as an opportunity to practice mastery once again? And boy, that can shift your whole perspective. And then, the angels show up when you need them most. People embodied angels, I call them, embodied angels, will show up and pull you out of that hole.
Mhm. Yeah,
All
totally.
sorts of magic happens.
Yeah, totally, totally. Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
not only have I seen myself come through those things, but I've seen other men that are incredible, unimaginable things. They're getting tons of treatments and stuff for physical conditions, medical conditions. They're totally depressed or the worst depression. And when they stick with it and they employ just doing the things that we're suggesting, just even those couple of suggestions, but like staying with it, I've seen miracles. I've seen people where it all goes away. It happens. It's possible. It's available. But you just got to be willing to let it in and let the process unfold and not give in to your thoughts that say, well, this means that and that means this. That's where we always get in trouble. So, yeah.
Well, part of that, Daniel, is, and I know you have to go and wrap things up, but embracing this body that we're given, it's this beautiful vessel. Most of the clients that I've worked with, and myself included, yeah, they were paying me to heal me. But
Right.
most of my clients are not embodying to varying degrees. They're not comfortable in this body because of the pain we're talking about,
Right.
or trauma, PTSD, whatever you came in with in your DNA from your ancestral lineage and so on.
Mhm.
It's about the journey back into this vessel, because if we're here for a reason, we're here as spiritual beings, 99.999% of us, to feel what it's like to be in physical form, to experience this. And to go into that, you have to clear away the layers or whatever it is that's preventing you from being in this body fully present. And
Right.
so that's a journey. And right now, on the planetary, level, in the frequency level of the upgrades, I call it, from the amount of light, the photons that are blasting into this, it's like Earth is under a microscope of light,
Mhm.
not a microscope, a magnifying glass.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
we're just, so we're being forced to evolve. And so the body has to shed literally all that old stuff. So I
Mhm.
call it cosmic chiropractic adjustments happen. All kinds of so-called accidents and things that are happening in the body, so
Mhm.
that the body can shed these things. Like I just finished getting over dengue fever from a mosquito.
Oh, yeah.
Literally, I'm still recovering. It was only a week
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a near-death experience for
Mhm.
many.
Yes, for sure.
Um,
Yes, yes.
Talk
Mhm.
about severe pain. So I embraced it as best as I could. And
Mhm.
these are things that are upgrades, I call them.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, like you said, like sweat it out, go into it, hang in there. You can do this. You never give it more than you can handle.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
no mistakes, or
Yeah.
no mistake.
Yeah. Even when it seems like it's more than you could handle, there's a grace that's holding you, but you just have to surrender into it. It's another way of putting it. For me, it was a feeling
Yeah,
of surrender often, just okay. And I would say things sometimes too, like no matter what's going on here, I'm just trusting it's for the higher good, like it's for my higher good, it's for the highest good of all. And that always helped me too. Just no matter how bad it was, just try to come back to that. Of course, you know, after complaining a lot, yeah, it's not that you're not going
yeah.
to stop complaining, but that eventually to come back to that space for sure. So yeah, I do need to wrap up for now, but this is an amazing conversation, James. I really super appreciate you and the
You're,
conversation. So thank you so much.
you're welcome. And can I leave you with two things?
Sure, sure.
My father on his transition bed, which I was humbly honored to be able to facilitate or hold space for when he passed, came out of a coma of 2 weeks to tell me two things before he left. 3 days after that, he went back into a coma and left. And it was not his voice, from what I remember.
Mhm.
And it was just this resonant tone. He said, remember two things in life. One, keep everything simple. 2, if you ever need anything, just remember, all you have to do is ask. So the ask and you shall receive. So really, we need each other. We need to ask each other for help. We need to support one another through this transition. And we can do this together a lot easier. And so I would like to leave you with that, because it's so empowering and powerful instead of power over.
That is so beautiful. I think I'll definitely be. It seems like I say those sort of things to me, but I love the 1-2 punch. Like especially the asking, because that is something that's sometimes men and women, but men a little extra, and sometimes in certain areas have a hard time, asking for help. Asking, all you have to do is ask. I love that. That is so powerful, and keep it simple. So thank you. That was a great nugget to end our time together for today. And thank you so much, James. It was a great pleasure.
You're a blessing, Daniel. Thank you so much. You're welcome. It was a pleasure. I really appreciate you. And thank you for that opportunity to share.
Thank you for listening in to Just Two Conscious Guys Talking, where our mission is to impact millions of men ultimately to deepen their awakening by examining their consciousness of what's been unfolding for them with male stereotypes and programming that has allowed them to have opportunities to evolve during these times. It's an exciting time to bring more love to men and women around the world, and we are grateful for you tuning in today. Feel free to share this episode and keep tuning in, and also look in the show notes for a link to get notifications of future episodes. Until the next time, everyone, goodbye for now.